The subway doors slid shut behind me, nearly catching my designer blazer. Another manic Monday morning in Aurora. I am Elena Mitchell, 34 years old and already a senior investment banker at Horizon Capital. My heels clicked against the grimy floor as I checked my Rolex. 7:43. Damn it, I muttered, knowing I would be cutting it close for the 8 a.m. client meeting. The subway car swayed, bodies pressed together in that familiar morning dance. I gripped the metal pole, trying not to think about the germs. My perfectly manicured nails gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Being a perfectionist had gotten me far in the cutthroat world of investment banking. That is when I saw her. She stood on the opposite platform, tall and commanding in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her black hair was swept up in an elegant twist, revealing a graceful neck adorned with a single strand of pearls. But it was her eyes that caught me, emerald green and sharp as cut glass. Our gazes locked across the tracks. Time seemed to slow, the rushing crowd fading to background noise. She tilted her head slightly, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. My heart did something it had not done since high school. It skipped a beat. The moment shattered as her train arrived, blocking my view. I pressed forward instinctively, earning annoyed grunts from my fellow passengers. When the train cleared, she was gone. I spent the rest of the ride mentally scolding myself. I was Elena Mitchell, the ice queen of Horizon Capital. I did not get flustered over random women on the subway, no matter how striking their eyes were or how perfectly their suits fit. Next stop, Financial District, the automated voice announced. I straightened my blazer and gripped my briefcase. The morning meeting was with a tech company owner seeking major investment. I needed to focus. Yet as I strode through the station, my mind kept drifting back to those green eyes. Mitchell, cutting it close, my colleague Tom remarked as I swept past reception. I gave him my trademark cool smile. I am never late, Tom. Everyone else is simply early. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor gave me time to settle into my professional persona. By the time I reached the conference room, the mysterious subway woman was firmly pushed to the back of my mind. Or so I thought. I opened the door, prepared to dazzle another client with my financial expertise, and there she was, rising from her seat at the conference table. Those same green eyes now sparkled with amused recognition. Elena Mitchell? She extended her hand. Margaret Baker. I believe we shared an interesting moment on the subway this morning. My carefully constructed professional mask cracked just slightly. The universe, it seemed, had other plans for my perfectly ordered life, and they all revolved around Margaret Baker, the woman who would turn my world upside down in ways I could never have imagined. I pride myself on maintaining composure in any situation, but Margaret Baker's presence threw me off balance. Her handshake was firm, professional, yet somehow lingering. The conference room suddenly felt too warm. Interesting indeed, I managed, sliding into my chair. Your proposal caught our attention. Tom droned through the introductions, but I barely heard him. I was too busy trying not to stare at Margaret as she gracefully took her seat. Her suit jacket had the subtlest pinstripe, and her pearl necklace caught the morning light. My company, Tech Vision, needs significant capital for expansion, Margaret began. Her voice carried the quiet authority of someone used to commanding rooms. We have promising developments in artificial intelligence. I forced myself to focus on the numbers. The proposal was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. As Margaret walked us through projections, I noticed small tells. A slight tension in her shoulders, the way she gripped her pen too tightly. These growth projections seem optimistic, I said, keeping my tone neutral. What is your contingency plan? Her green eyes met mine across the table. Perhaps we could discuss the details more thoroughly in private? Tom shifted uncomfortably. I shot him a look that sent him scurrying from the room with mumbled excuses. The door clicked shut behind him. Your company is bleeding money, I stated flatly. These numbers do not add up. Margaret's professional mask slipped slightly. I appreciate directness, Ms. Mitchell. Elena, I corrected automatically. And directness is all I offer. She stood, walking to the window. The city sprawled below, a maze of possibilities and pitfalls. The technology is revolutionary. We just need time. Time is expensive. I moved to stand beside her. And you were running out of both. Have dinner with me, she said suddenly. I will show you everything. The double meaning hung in the air between us. I should have said no. Professional boundaries existed for a reason. But those damn green eyes pulled at something deep inside me. 8 o'clock. Text me the address. I handed her my business card, our fingers brushing. Electric tension crackled between us. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I buried myself in research, trying to ignore the anticipation building in my chest. TechVision's financials were a mess, but beneath the chaos, I sensed potential. At 7:55, my taxi pulled up to an upscale restaurant in Cherry Creek. Margaret waited outside, her black hair now falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She had changed into a deep burgundy dress that made my mouth go dry. "I was worried you might not come," she said softly. "I always keep my appointments." I stepped closer. "Though this feels less like business. Does that bother you?" Her perfume was subtle, intoxicating. "It should." I met her gaze steadily. "But it does not." Inside, over perfectly seared scallops and wine that cost more than my first car, Margaret revealed the true state of TechVision. The technology was revolutionary, but investors were pulling out. She needed a miracle. "Why did you really invite me here?" I asked as dessert arrived. Margaret's fingers traced the stem of her wineglass. "Because when our eyes met this morning, I saw something rare. Someone who might understand." "Understand what?" "The price of success, the loneliness at the top." She leaned forward. "The need to trust someone." I should have walked away. My instincts screamed that there was more to this story, but as the night deepened and the wine flowed, I found myself drawn into Margaret's orbit. She was brilliant, complicated, and possibly dangerous to everything I had built. As we parted outside the restaurant, she caught my hand. "Thank you for listening, Elena. This changes nothing about the investment decision," I warned. She smiled, knowing and mysterious. "Of course not. But perhaps it changes something else." I watched her disappear into a waiting car, my skin still tingling where she had touched me. I was playing with fire, and I knew it. The question was, would I get burned, or had I finally found someone worth the risk? Coffee became our ritual over the next few weeks. Every morning at 7, before the city fully woke, we would meet at a quiet cafe near the financial district. The morning light would catch Margaret's hair, turning it almost blue-black. "Your board is getting impatient," I said one morning, stirring my Americano. "They want answers." Margaret's lips tightened slightly. "They always want answers. That is all they ever want." I had learned to read her moods. Today, something was off. Her usual commanding presence seemed dimmed, shoulders carrying an invisible weight. "What is really going on, Margaret?" I kept my voice low, intimate. She glanced around the nearly empty cafe before leaning closer. "Can we talk somewhere private?" 20 minutes later, we were in my office. Margaret paced by the window, the rising sun casting long shadows across the carpet. Her composure cracked. "Sarah is dying," she whispered. The words fell like stones in the quiet room. "Sarah?" "My partner, 5 years together." Margaret's hands trembled. "Pancreatic cancer. The treatments are experimental, expensive." Understanding dawned. The desperate push for funding, the rushed timelines. The investment money. Part of it would go to her treatment. Margaret turned to me, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know it is wrong, but I cannot lose her." I should have reported her immediately. Using investment funds for personal matters was illegal, no matter the reason. But watching her vulnerability, my professional detachment wavered. "There are other ways," I said softly. "Legal ways." She moved closer, her perfume wrapping around me. "Help me find them?" Our coffee meetings stretched longer. We would discuss financial strategies, but conversations inevitably drifted personal. I learned about her childhood in Vermont, her struggle to build TechVision from nothing. "You remind me of myself at your age," she said one evening as we worked late. "So determined to prove yourself." "I have nothing to prove anymore." I shuffled papers, avoiding her gaze. "No?" Her hand covered mine, stilling my movements. "Then why do you work so hard?" The office was empty, twilight painting the sky purple beyond the windows. Margaret's touch sent warmth spiraling through me. "Some of us just want to excel," I managed. Her thumb traced circles on my wrist. "And some of us are running from something." I pulled away, heart racing. We should focus on the proposal. But focus became impossible. Every meeting was charged with unspoken tension. Every accidental touch lingered too long. I caught myself watching her lips as she spoke, imagining. Elena? Her voice brought me back to reality. Where did you go just now? Nowhere important. I straightened papers that were already straight. About the third quarter projections. Stop. Margaret stood, walking around my desk. For once, stop analyzing. She perched on the edge of my desk, close enough that I could smell her perfume. What are we doing here, Elena? Business, I said automatically. Just business. Is that all? Her hand brushed my cheek. Because I think we both know that is not true. The smart move would have been to pull away, to maintain professional boundaries, to remember Sarah, dying in some hospital bed while I contemplated kissing her partner. But I was tired of being smart. Margaret's lips parted slightly, an invitation I was suddenly desperate to accept. The space between us crackled with possibility. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Tom's voice called through. Elena, the board needs those projections. Margaret straightened, smoothing her skirt. But her eyes promised this conversation was not over. Tomorrow? She asked softly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As she left, I pressed my forehead against the cool window glass. What was I doing? This could destroy everything I had built. But watching her walk away, I realized something terrifying. Maybe, just maybe, it would be worth it. Please note that I'll maintain appropriate language and avoid explicit content. Here's Chapter 4. Margaret's proposal came on a rainy Tuesday evening. The office was empty except for us, spreadsheets scattered across my desk like fallen leaves. I have another option, she said quietly. One that could solve everything. I looked up from the financial reports, noting the tension in her shoulders. I am listening. There is a way to structure the investment. She passed me a folder. Creative accounting, you might say. My stomach dropped as I reviewed the documents. The scheme was elegant, nearly undetectable. It would funnel money through shell companies, making it appear as legitimate business expenses. This is fraud, I said flatly. You know that. It is survival. Margaret leaned forward. The technology works, Elena. We just need time. And Sarah's treatments? I kept my voice neutral. A small portion. Her green eyes pleaded. No one would notice. I stood, pacing to the window. Rain streaked the glass, distorting the city lights below. Do you know what you are asking? I am asking you to trust me. She moved behind me, her reflection ghosting in the window. To help me save both my company and someone I love. By breaking the law? I turned to face her. By risking everything we have both worked for? Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing are not the same. The space between us crackled with tension. I could smell her perfume, subtle and intoxicating. I need to review these numbers, I said, stepping back. But as I reached for the folder, something caught my eye. A discrepancy in the quarterly reports. Margaret noticed my pause. What is it? These figures. I pulled up previous statements on my computer. They do not match the original submissions. Her face remained carefully neutral. Clerical errors happen. Not like this. I dug deeper, finding more inconsistencies. Margaret, what are you not telling me? Elena, please. She reached for my hand. Trust me. Trust works both ways. I pulled away. Tell me the truth. Our eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. I cannot, she whispered finally. Then neither can I. I gathered the documents. This proposal is rejected. Elena. Her voice stopped me at the door. You do not understand what is at stake. I understand perfectly. I turned back. You are asking me to commit fraud. She moved closer, too close. I am asking you to help me. Why me? The question escaped before I could stop it. Because from that first moment on the subway, I knew you were different. Her hand cupped my cheek. Because I see how you look at me. My heart thundered in my chest. Margaret, do not. But she was already leaning in, her lips brushing mine with devastating softness. The files slipped from my fingers, papers scattering across the floor. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness and desire crashing together like storm waves. Her hands tangled in my hair as I pressed her against the wall. Reality crashed back when my elbow knocked over a lamp. The shattering glass broke the spell. I stepped back, breathing hard. This cannot happen. It already has. Margaret straightened her blouse. And you know this is more than just business now. That makes it worse. I began gathering the scattered papers. I cannot be objective anymore. Then stop trying to be. She knelt beside me. Help me find another way. I looked at her, this woman who had completely upended my carefully ordered life. If I find something in these records, you will do what you have to do. She stood. Just like I will. She left me there, surrounded by papers and broken glass, the taste of her still on my lips. I had crossed a line, both professionally and personally. The question was, how many more lines would I cross for her? Thunder crashed outside as I began to dig through the financial records. Something wasn't adding up, and I had a sinking feeling I wouldn't like what I found. Sleep became a luxury I could not afford. Every night, I pored over TechVision's records, searching for answers. The numbers danced before my tired eyes, telling a story I was not sure I wanted to read. You look exhausted, Margaret said over our morning coffee. Her concern seemed genuine. Occupational hazard. I sipped my double espresso. Your company's financials are keeping me up. Something flickered in her eyes. Find anything interesting? Nothing conclusive. I lied, watching her reaction. Yet, the truth was I had found plenty. Complex money trails, hidden accounts, patterns that raised red flags, but I needed more evidence before confronting her. Come to my office tonight, she said suddenly. I will show you something that might help. I should have said no. Professional boundaries had already blurred beyond recognition. But curiosity won out. 8 o'clock? She nodded, that ghost of a smile playing at her lips. Wear something comfortable. It might be a long night. The TechVision office occupied the top floor of a glass tower downtown. At night, the view of Aurora was breathtaking. Margaret waited in her corner office, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. These are the original development files, she said, gesturing to boxes of documents. Everything from the beginning. Hours passed as we worked through the papers. Margaret ordered Chinese food, and we ate cross-legged on her office floor. Tell me about Sarah, I said quietly, watching her reaction. Pain flashed across her face. She was brilliant, a quantum computing expert. Was, not is. The past tense caught my attention. The medical bills must be overwhelming, I probed gently. You have no idea. She rubbed her temples. The experimental treatments. A notification pinged on my phone. An encrypted email from my contact at the SEC. Excuse me, I mumbled, stepping into the hallway. The message was brief, but devastating. Sarah Baker had died 2 years ago. Cancer, yes, but long before TechVision's current financial troubles began. My hands shook as I returned to the office. Margaret stood by the window, silhouetted against the city lights. Everything all right? She asked without turning. You tell me. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. When were you going to mention Sarah died 2 years ago? The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Finally, she turned. How did you find out? That is not an answer. She moved closer, her perfume clouding my judgment. Elena, please understand. Understand what? I stepped back. That you lied about everything? Not everything. Her hand caught mine. Not about how I feel about you. The worst part was, I believed her. Despite the lies, despite the manipulation, the connection between us felt real. Then tell me the truth, I whispered. All of it. Before she could answer, her computer chimed. An anonymous email appeared on her screen. My blood ran cold as I read the message. Well, Margaret said quietly, it seems we are both keeping secrets. The email contained surveillance photos, us at the cafe, in my office, the kiss, and financial records suggesting I had been helping hide TechVision's fraud. I am being set up, I realized. We both are. Margaret's hand tightened on mine. Now, do you understand why I needed your help? I stared at the evidence against us, mind racing. Someone had been watching, waiting, building a case that could destroy us both. Who? I demanded. Who is doing this? That is what I have been trying to figure out. She moved to her desk, pulling out more files. Someone inside TechVision wants control. Dawn found us still working, piecing together a conspiracy larger than either of us had imagined. As the sun rose over Aurora, I realized there was no going back. I was in too deep, professionally and personally, and despite everything, I could not walk away from her now. We will figure this out, I said, touching her shoulder. She covered my hand with hers. Together? Together. I agreed, knowing it might be the biggest mistake of my life. The truth unraveled like a poorly knit sweater. Each thread I pulled revealed another lie, another deception. I sat in my office at midnight, surrounded by financial records and empty coffee cups. Sarah had never been Margaret's romantic partner. She was her sister, a brilliant scientist who had indeed died of cancer. But the story went deeper. Ms. Mitchell? My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Margaret Baker is here. I closed the damning files on my computer. Send her in. Margaret entered, looking less composed than usual. Her black hair was slightly disheveled, green eyes shadowed with exhaustion. You have been avoiding me, she said quietly. I have been investigating you. No point in pretending anymore. Sarah was your sister. She sank into the chair across from me. Yes. Why the elaborate lie? I leaned forward. Why not just tell me the truth? Would you have helped if I had? Her eyes met mine. Would you have looked deeper? Into what? Sarah's research. Margaret pulled out a USB drive. This is what they really want. The drive contained research data on quantum encryption, revolutionary stuff that could transform digital security. Sarah's life work. Someone inside TechVision killed her, Margaret whispered. They made it look natural. My world tilted sideways. What? The cancer was real, she continued. But her decline was too fast. Her doctor found traces of something in her blood. I remembered the financial discrepancies, the hidden accounts. The company is a front for something bigger. Margaret's hands trembled. I needed someone I could trust, someone with the skills to follow the money. So, you seduced me? The words tasted bitter. No. She reached across the desk, taking my hand. That was never part of the plan. Then what was it? The only real thing in this mess. Her thumb traced circles on my palm. I never meant to fall for you. The admission hung between us, heavy with possibility and danger. Show me everything, I said finally. For the next hours, Margaret laid out the whole story. Sarah's breakthrough, the mysterious investors, the systematic takeover of TechVision. Why not go to the authorities? They are already compromised. She pulled up more files. Look at these connections. Names I recognized. Powerful people in law enforcement, finance, government, all with hidden ties to TechVision. Damn, I whispered. This goes all the way up. Now you understand why I needed someone outside the system. Margaret moved around the desk. Someone brilliant, someone honest. I am not feeling very honest lately. I looked up at her. Not since I met you. Elena. She leaned down, her face inches from mine. The kiss was different this time. No secrets between us, just raw truth and need. Her hands tangled in my hair as I pulled her closer. A security guard's footsteps in the hallway broke us apart. Reality crashed back. We cannot do this here, I said, straightening my blouse. We cannot do this at all. Margaret stepped back. Not until this is over. And then? She smiled sadly. If we survive this, I will take you to dinner. A real date, no lies. I will hold you to that. I turned back to the computer. Now, show me these accounts again. We worked through the night, building our case. By dawn, we had enough evidence to expose the conspiracy. The question was, who could we trust with it? There is no going back, Margaret warned as we watched the sun rise. Once we move on this. I know. I took her hand. But Sarah deserves justice. And us? She squeezed my fingers. What do we deserve? I looked at our joined hands, thinking of all the lies and truths between us. A chance, I said finally. We deserve a chance. The city was waking up outside my window. Somewhere out there, powerful people were about to have a very bad day. And I, Elena Mitchell, Ice Queen of Horizon Capital, was about to help bring them down. For Sarah. For Margaret. For the chance at something real in a world of lies. The SEC investigation began quietly. No dramatic raids or press releases, just subtle inquiries and requests for documents. "They are circling," Tom warned me over lunch. "Something big is coming." I maintained my poker face. TechVision is just another client. But we both knew that was a lie. I had been working late every night, carefully building a parallel investigation. Margaret and I communicated through encrypted channels, sharing discoveries. "The board called an emergency meeting," she texted one evening. "They know something." I stared at my phone, fighting the urge to rush to her office. "Stay calm, stick to the plan." The plan was delicate. We needed to protect the quantum encryption research while exposing the conspiracy. One wrong move could destroy everything. Late that night, Margaret slipped into my apartment. Her face was pale with exhaustion. "They voted to replace me as CEO," she said, collapsing onto my couch. "Effective immediately." I poured us both a scotch. "We expected this. Not this fast." She took a long sip. "They are moving up the timeline. The implications hit me hard. If they replaced Margaret, we would lose access to crucial evidence. Then we move faster." I opened my laptop. "Show me what you grabbed before they locked you out." She produced a small drive. Everything from the secure servers, Sarah's complete research. We worked through the night, cataloging evidence and building our case. Margaret's shoulder pressed against mine as we huddled over the computer. "They will come after you next," she warned softly. "Let them try." I squeezed her hand. "I have friends at the SEC. "Careful friends?" "Very." I turned to face her. "We just need time." Her eyes met mine in the dim light. "Time is the one thing we do not have." She was right. The next morning, Horizon Capital received a formal inquiry about my involvement with TechVision. "The board wants to speak with you," my director said gravely. I straightened my blazer. Of course. The meeting was exactly what I expected. Concerned faces, carefully worded questions about my relationship with Margaret Baker. "This investigation puts us in a difficult position," the chairman said. "I understand completely." I smiled coolly. "That is why I have already prepared my resignation." Shocked silence filled the boardroom. I placed my letter on the table and stood. "It has been a pleasure, gentlemen." Margaret was waiting in my apartment when I returned. "How did it go?" "Exactly as planned." I kicked off my heels. "I am officially unemployed." She wrapped her arms around me from behind. "I am sorry." "Do not be." I leaned back into her embrace. "Now we can work without constraints." We spent the next days building our case. Margaret's industry contacts provided crucial links, while my financial expertise traced the money. "Look at this," she called out one evening. "A pattern in the research access logs." I examined the data. Someone had been copying Sarah's work piece by piece long before her death. They were stealing it all along, I realized. The takeover was just cleanup. Margaret's hands clenched into fists. "We have them." "Almost." I pulled up more files. "We need one more piece." That piece arrived unexpectedly. A junior programmer from TechVision reached out, offering internal communications proving the conspiracy. "Why now?" Margaret asked during our secret meeting. "Because Dr. Baker was kind to me," the young woman said simply. "She deserved better." Armed with the final evidence, we prepared to move. But that night, as Margaret slept beside me, my phone buzzed with a warning. "They know," my SEC contact wrote. "Get out now." I gently shook Margaret awake. "We need to go." She read the message and nodded. Within minutes, we were in my car, heading out of Aurora. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." I took her hand. "Trust me." Dawn found us at a small cabin in the mountains, owned by a friend who never asked questions. "What now?" Margaret stood by the window, watching the sunrise. I wrapped my arms around her waist. "Now we finish this." She turned in my embrace. "Together?" "Always." I kissed her softly. They cannot hide anymore. The morning light painted everything gold, promising a new day. We had lost our jobs, our reputations, maybe even our safety. But we had found each other, and together we would bring justice for Sarah. The mountain cabin became our war room. Margaret and I worked around the clock, organizing evidence and planning our next moves. Robert Chen is the key, Margaret said, pinning his photo to our evidence board. Tech Vision's former chief technology officer. I studied his image. The one who resigned right after Sarah's death? He knew about the tampering. She traced lines between documents. But he was too afraid to speak up. My SEC contact had confirmed Chen's location in Denver. Now we just had to convince him to talk. He will not meet us directly, I warned. Not after what happened to Sarah. Margaret's face hardened at her sister's name. Then we make him come to us. We crafted our message carefully, including just enough evidence to prove we knew the truth. The response came within hours. Tomorrow, noon, Denver Botanical Gardens. The gardens were busy with tourists, perfect cover for a clandestine meeting. I spotted Chen immediately, a nervous man in an ill-fitting suit. Dr. Chen. I approached casually. Thank you for coming. His eyes darted around. I cannot stay long. Long enough to explain this? Margaret emerged from behind a tree, holding up a tablet. On the screen was an email chain. Chen's face went pale. Where did you get that? Sarah kept backups, Margaret said coldly, of everything. The next hour changed everything. Chen's confession poured out between trembling sips of water. They approached me first, he explained. Offered millions for access to Sarah's research. But she refused to sell, Margaret prompted. She was idealistic. Chen wiped his brow. Wanted the technology used for public good. So they killed her, I finished quietly. He nodded miserably. They said it would look natural. The cancer provided perfect cover. Margaret's hands shook as she recorded his statement. I reached for her fingers, squeezing gently. Names, I demanded. We need names. Chen pulled out a USB drive. Everything is here. But once they know I talked. We will protect you, I promised. The drive contained exactly what we needed. Corporate communications, bank transfers, medical records. A complete conspiracy laid bare. We were so focused on our victory, we missed the warning signs. The first bullet shattered the garden's greenhouse. Tourists screamed and scattered. Down. I pulled Margaret behind a concrete planter. Chen ran but did not make it. A red stain bloomed on his chest as he fell. Elena? Margaret's warning came too late. Something hard struck my temple. The world spun sideways as I collapsed. Through blurring vision, I saw Margaret fighting, her martial arts training evident. But they were too many. Take them both, a voice ordered. Clean this up. I tried to reach for Margaret as darkness closed in. Her green eyes were the last thing I saw. I woke in darkness, head throbbing. Industrial sounds echoed nearby. A warehouse? Margaret? I whispered. Here. Her voice came from nearby. Are you hurt? Just my pride. I tested my bonds. You? Been better. She shifted closer. They took the drive. Not the only copy. I smiled in the dark. Before leaving Denver, we had sent everything to multiple secure locations. Deadman switches would release it all if we did not check in regularly. Heavy footsteps approached. A door creaked open, spilling harsh light. Ms. Mitchell, a familiar voice said, we need to discuss your interference in corporate matters. I squinted up at Thomas Warren, Tech Vision's board chairman. Tommy, I managed a smirk. Quite a promotion from mailroom clerk. His face darkened. You have no idea what you are involved in. Actually, Margaret spoke up. We know exactly what this is about. Warren signaled to his men. Make them talk. Find out who else knows. As they approached, I caught Margaret's eye. She gave an imperceptible nod. We were not finished yet. Not by a long shot. The next few hours would determine everything. Our lives, Sarah's justice, and whatever future we might have together. I tensed, ready. Sometimes you have to risk everything for what matters. And Margaret, she definitely mattered. Warren's men made their first mistake when they separated us. Their second was underestimating how much we had planned for this. One last time, Warren loomed over me. Who else has the files? I spat blood onto his expensive shoes. Go to hell, Tommy. His face twisted. Still the same arrogant Elena. You never did know your place. And you never did learn to cover your tracks properly. A commotion erupted outside the room. Shouts and thuds echoed through the warehouse. Warren's phone buzzed. His face paled as he read the message. Impossible, he whispered. I smiled through split lips. Right on schedule. The dead man switch had activated. Every major news outlet and law enforcement agency was now receiving Sarah's research data and evidence of TechVision's crimes. You think this changes anything? Warren grabbed my collar. We own the system. Not anymore. Margaret's voice rang out from the doorway. She stood there, somehow free, holding Warren's security chief at gunpoint. How? Warren spun around. You should have checked my military background, Margaret said coldly. Special Forces tends to teach useful skills. I used his distraction to slam my head back, catching his nose. He stumbled away as I rolled clear. Elena, down. Margaret's warning preceded the sound of sirens. FBI agents swarmed the warehouse. My SEC contact had through after all. Thomas Warren, an agent announced, you are under arrest for conspiracy and murder. I watched them cuff him, satisfaction warring with exhaustion. Margaret helped me up, her touch gentle despite her own bruises. Your timing is impeccable, I murmured. Could not let them rough up my favorite investment banker. She smiled softly. The next hours passed in a blur of statements and medical checks. Dawn found us at FBI headquarters, slowly working through decades of corporate corruption. Ms. Mitchell, the lead agent said, your evidence is extraordinary. Thanks, Sarah Baker, I replied. She died protecting this research. Margaret squeezed my hand under the table. The case against TechVision's board was ironclad. Warren's confession, faced with overwhelming evidence, implicated dozens of conspirators. The quantum encryption research? Margaret asked quietly. Secure, the agent assured us. It will be developed as Dr. Baker intended, for public benefit. Later, exhausted but triumphant, we stood on my apartment balcony watching the sun rise over Aurora. What now? Margaret asked, her head resting on my shoulder. Now we rebuild. I turned to face her. Both TechVision and our lives. Together? Instead of answering, I kissed her. She tasted of coffee and victory and possibility. The media storm hit hard. Business journals exploded with headlines about corporate espionage and murder. My former colleagues at Horizon Capital scrambled to distance themselves. But their connections to TechVision were already exposed. Margaret testified before Congress about technology theft and corporate accountability. Her passion for Sarah's legacy moved even hardened politicians. I focused on restructuring TechVision, working with federal regulators to preserve the company while excising the corruption. The board wants you as CEO, I told Margaret one evening. Permanently this time. She looked up from Sarah's research notes. Only if you will be my CFO. Mixing business and pleasure? I teased. Always. She pulled me close. We make a good team. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Warren and his conspirators faced lengthy sentences for Sarah's murder and the technology theft. TechVision emerged transformed. Under Margaret's leadership, the quantum encryption research advanced ethically, protecting digital privacy worldwide. Sarah would be proud, I said, watching Margaret present the technology at a global conference. She smiled, though tears shimmered in her green eyes. She would have loved you. Because I helped expose the truth? Because you helped me find justice. Margaret touched my cheek. And something more. Outside, reporters still clamored for interviews about the scandal. But here, in this moment, none of that mattered. We had overcome lies, corruption, and death to find truth. And in that truth, we found each other. Sometimes the biggest frauds hide the greatest treasures. You just have to be brave enough to dig deep and fight for what matters. For me, that treasure was a brilliant woman with green eyes and an unshakable sense of justice. The rest? Just details in our increasingly extraordinary story. Spring came to Aurora with a promise of new beginnings. TechVision's rebirth dominated business news, but I had other transformations on my mind. The penthouse or the mountain house? Margaret asked over breakfast. I stirred my coffee thoughtfully. Both seemed too obvious. We were hunting for our first shared home. After everything we had survived, living apart felt pointless. We could build something new, I suggested. Fresh start. Margaret's eyes lit up. I know the perfect spot. She drove us to a hillside property overlooking the city. The view stretched from downtown Aurora to the distant mountains. Sarah and I used to hike here, she said softly. She always said this would be perfect for a home. I took her hand. Then this is where we will build. The next months passed in a whirlwind of progress. TechVision's quantum encryption technology revolutionized digital security. Margaret's leadership transformed the company culture. Innovation flourished without corruption's shadow. I launched my own investment consulting firm, specializing in ethical corporate restructuring. My experience with TechVision attracted clients worldwide. Ready to present to the Tokyo investors? Margaret called from our temporary apartment. Born ready. I adjusted my suit jacket. You? Always. She kissed me quickly. See you at the office. Our professional lives remained carefully separate. No one could accuse us of impropriety now. But watching her command the boardroom still made my heart race. Her confidence was intoxicating. Brilliant presentation, I whispered during a break. She smiled that private smile. Wait until you see tonight's plans. Construction on our house progressed steadily. We spent weekends reviewing designs and choosing materials. The study needs better light, Margaret insisted. For Sarah's photos, I agreed. The house would honor her memory while embracing our future. One evening, reviewing final plans, Margaret grew quiet. What is it? I asked. I never thought I would find this, she said softly. After Sarah died, I focused only on revenge. And now? Now I have purpose again. She touched my cheek. And love. The word hung between us, precious and new. We had never labeled this thing between us. Move in with me, I blurted, before the house is ready. She blinked. I practically live here already. Make it official. I took her hands. No more separate addresses. Her smile could have lit the city. Yes. Merging our lives proved surprisingly simple. Her books filled my shelves. Her clothes claimed closet space. Our morning routine became a comfortable dance of coffee and kisses. The press is asking about our relationship, she mentioned one day. I looked up from my laptop. What will you tell them? The truth. She sat beside me. That love bloomed from justice. Our house neared completion as summer approached. The glass walls would capture both sunrise and sunset. Perfect for morning yoga, Margaret noted, touring the master bedroom. Among other things, I teased, earning a playful swat. Sarah's presence lingered in subtle touches. Her favorite flowers bloomed in the garden. Her research filled the study walls. She would have loved this view, Margaret said softly. I held her close. She led us here, in a way. The truth in that struck us both. Without Sarah's legacy, we might never have found each other. Ready to start our next chapter? I asked. Margaret's answer was a kiss that tasted of future promises. We had built something remarkable from tragedy's ashes, a home, a love, a legacy. And standing there, holding Margaret as the sun set over our new beginning, I knew. Sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised as corporate fraud cases. You just have to be brave enough to follow them through. 1 year later, I found myself on that same subway platform where it all began. The morning crowd rushed past, but I stood still, remembering. Penny for your thoughts? Margaret's voice came from behind me. I turned to find her holding 2 coffee cups. Just feeling nostalgic. About that first morning? She handed me my Americano. When you could not take your eyes off me? As I recall, you were the one staring. I sipped my coffee, smiling. We had come full circle. The subway still rattled through Aurora, but everything else had changed. The gala starts at 8, Margaret reminded me. Ready to make it official? Tonight's Tech Vision Charity Gala would mark our first public appearance as a couple. Should be interesting, I mused. The gossip columns will explode. Let them talk. She squeezed my hand. We have nothing to hide anymore. The day passed in a blur of preparations. Our new house hummed with activity as we got ready. "Zip me up?" Margaret asked, holding her emerald gown in place. I obliged, letting my fingers trail along her spine. "You look stunning. Not so bad yourself." She turned, adjusting my bow tie. "Very dashing." The gala venue sparkled with Aurora's elite. Heads turned as we entered together. "Margaret Baker and Elena Mitchell," the announcer called. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew our story, but seeing us together still caused a stir. "Quite an entrance," Tom commented, approaching with champagne. "Good to see you, old friend." I accepted a glass. He had stood by us through everything, one of the few from my old life who understood. Margaret took the podium later, announcing Tech Vision's new charitable foundation. The Sarah Baker Foundation will ensure quantum encryption technology serves the public good. Her voice caught slightly on her sister's name. I moved closer in silent support. "Together, we will build the future my sister envisioned." The applause was thunderous. Sarah's legacy would live on, protecting digital privacy worldwide. Later, as the orchestra played, Margaret led me to the dance floor. "Remember our first dance?" she asked softly. "At that investor dinner." I pulled her closer. "You were trying to convince me to trust you. And now? Now I trust you with everything." The music changed to a familiar melody. Our song. "Come with me," Margaret whispered suddenly. She led me to the rooftop garden. The city lights sparkled below like earthbound stars. "This feels familiar," I smiled. "Planning another corporate takeover? Something more personal?" She turned to face me. "Elena Mitchell, you changed everything." My heart skipped as she reached into her clutch. "When we met, I was consumed by revenge." She opened a small velvet box. "You showed me how to live again." The ring caught the starlight, simple and elegant. "Marry me?" she asked softly. Time seemed to stop, just like that first morning on the subway. "Yes," I whispered. 1,000 times yes." The ring slid perfectly onto my finger as our lips met. Below, the city continued its endless dance. But up here, under the stars, we had found our perfect moment. "I love you," Margaret murmured against my lips. "I love you too." Sometimes the greatest stories begin with a simple glance across a subway platform. Sometimes justice leads to love. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, you find both. We had come full circle, Margaret and I. From strangers to conspirators to lovers. Now we would write our next chapter together. Not bad for a corporate fraud case, I thought, holding my fiancé under the Aurora stars. Not bad at all.